Hi, this is Debbie. I wanted to share this card with you today that came about after a little tidy up session. I was putting my stamp sets away into their plastic sleeves and I came across this Avery Elle Simply Said Hello set. That bottom right sentiment just caught my eye and threw me back to the years when I used to watch the TV sitcom Friends, and that was Joey's catchphrase. While I was also tidying up, I came across the Winter Penguin set from Lawn Fawn, and I thought that cute little penguin strutting his stuff on the ice just went really well with that sentiment. I stamped the penguin on a scrap of Nina Solar White card with Memento Tuxedo black ink, and now I'm going to speed this video up while I colour. I apologise for the state of my hands at the moment. I've been particularly accident prone, and that little plaster on my knuckle there, it refused to stay down through most of this video. Anyway, getting back to the colouring, and I'm using R24, R27 and R29 for the reds for the scarf, with a little E37 to give the depths of the shading. For the beak, I've got Y21 and Y23, and then for the ice skates, I thought some green ones would be fun, and that's using G24 and G29. Along the way somewhere, I've picked up that when you're colouring something which is viewed as being alive, such as a critter or a cat or a dog, when you're colouring images such as that, you should use W markers when you need to colour something grey. So to add some shading to the penguin's belly, I use some W1 and W3. And then to give a contrast against the W markers for the rest of the penguin, I've used some T markers, T5, T6 and T8. Now that the colouring is complete, I've used the matching Winter Penguin die, attached it with some washi tape and then ran it through my die cutter. I'm moving on to thinking about a scene for the penguin, and I have the Stitched Slopes and Hills dies from Simon Says Stamp, and I like the one where the stitching comes down separately from the top of the hills. And then I wanted to create an icy pond for the penguin to skate on, and I looked through my dies and found this Trees and Trunks die from Simon Says Stamp, and it's got a oval shape as one of the dies, and I thought that would make a great icy pond. I've run some Nina Solar White card through with the Stitched Slope die and then marked with pencil where I want the pond to be. Using a mini ink blending tool, I'm going to use some Broken China Distress inks to add a little bit of shading to the snow that will surround the pond. I'm tapping off onto some scratch paper and then moving the ink from the centre of the pond outwards onto the snow hills. Once I'd got a light covering of ink, I put the die in place and ran it through my die cutting machine, and also ran a second oval through with some Nina Solar White card that hadn't been inked, and then they nestle in together and you've got that snowy sort of background with a light blue tinge to it and the white icy pond. I put the penguin in place and then, using him as a guide to where to stamp the heart swirl, and I stamped that in Memento Tuxedo black ink. I decided I wanted a second snowy hill behind my main focal point, so I've taken the Stitched Slopes and Hills die again from Simon Says Stamp and chosen a different one from the pack, and judging where to place it in comparison to my front panel before running it through my die cutting machine. Now that I have the main parts of the card complete, it was time to return to that sentiment that started everything off. I'm checking to see if the long speech bubble from Simon Says Stamp's Talk Bubbles 2 set fits the sentiment, and indeed it does, it fits it really well. So I'm going to cut that die from some scrap Nina Solar White card. Again, I use Memento Tuxedo black in order to stamp the sentiment. Finally, I've got all my pieces together and I've chosen a piece of pattern paper from Lawn Fawn's Hello Sunshine 6x6 paper pad, and I'm mounting everything with some foam adhesive onto that panel of pattern paper. The panel is sized at 3¼ by 4¾ so that it fits nicely onto a 4-bar 3½ by 5-inch card base. So once all the layers have been added, I'm popping in the icy pond and then finally the penguin. As this amorous penguin is all loved up, I wanted to add some hearts. I've coloured a piece of Nina Solar White card with the R27 Copic marker, and then I'm running that through my die cutter with the Holiday Shapes dies from Simon Says Stamp. I've cut a number of those out and scattered them around the penguin and attaching everything again with foam adhesive. Using glossy accents, I added a few sequins from Pretty Pink Posh, that's their 4mm and 6mm sparkling clear ones, and then I also used glossy accents on the hearts and on the ice skates. The final touch was to add some Zig Wink of Stella glitter pen to the scarf, Now, really I should have added the glossy accents after I mounted onto the card, but being very careful, I mounted the panel onto a top folding card base, just making sure I didn't touch the glossy accents while it was still wet. And that completes this card. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and I'll leave you with some photographs.